Hi, welcome to animationscope.com. My name is Ram and today I'm going to show you how you can create landscape scenes in 3ds Max using Vray as a renderer. So we are going to create something like this, and by using the same techniques, like for example, for the trees I have used Forest Pro, and for the rendering I have used Vray, and the tips and tricks which I'm going to cover in this tutorial. And by following the tutorial, you would be able to create something like this also. This is absolutely the same kind of thing which we are going to create in this tutorial, and you can create something like this, something like this. So guys, let's get started with the tutorial, and I hope you guys will enjoy it. Thank you. So as this tutorial is for intermediate users, I assume that you have a basic understanding of 3ds Max. So let's quickly start with going to standard primitives, and I'm taking plane as my geometry, and I'm just taking any length and width. I'm increasing the segments because I'm going to use a displace modifier for creating the mountains. I have increased the length segments to something around 40 and 40 length and width segments. And let's go to the modifier tab and let's quickly apply a displace modifier to it. Displace, and quickly let's assign a bitmap. I have already downloaded few displacement map. I will provide the links of the displacement maps I have used in this tutorial. So let's quickly apply that. Go to the bitmap slot and choose your displacement map. So right now I'm having these two displacement map. I'm going to use this one, and let's increase the strength and let's see what it looks like. As you can see, the displacement is happening. Just increase a bit more. Okay, so far so good. Something like this. I think this much is enough, and let's do the other things later on. And also go to this perspective view, right click and choose show save frames, so that you can see what is going to be rendered. So you can add some more planes, or you can duplicate these things like by holding down shift button and move it towards the right, and it will ask for copy or instance. I'm choosing copy. And so right now we are having two mountains and both are looking similar, so I am changing the bitmap of this one, and oh, something weird happened. Just undo it and just click on that and choose this one. Click open, and as this was a different bitmap, so this is giving us a feeling of a different mountain. So just make some adjustment. I'm moving it a little closer to the previous one. You can also increase or decrease the strength, so just to make it a little bit unique. Okay, so far so good. And I'm placing it like this. You can use the zoom tools to make the right composition for your scene. Now just you can scale your mountain something like this. You can shift it around like this. Go to the top view, you can hit F3 or F4. You can duplicate it, arrange like this. You can rotate it. I'm just giving some variations to it. You can move it a little backward, something like this. You can also put it a little downwards like this, or you can decrease the strength to make it a little smaller, because as this is at the back side, it should look a little smaller. It's totally up to you because this is a 3D software. and you can play with the sizes and everything as per your need requirement. Something like this. Okay, so and you can also like this. Okay, so we have placed these things. Now let's add a geometry for our ocean surface. I'm choosing a plane, and for this there is no need to give so many segments, so you can just change it to 1 by 1. Okay, you can place a camera to the scene by hitting Ctrl C, and now you can go to your perspective view. You can see, as I can see, this surface is looking very straight. I think that's not right because it's not possible in reality. So what I'm going to do is I am just shifting my plane a little bit upward in the z-axis so that I will get a nice natural water. When like it touches to the mountains, we get some kind of this kind of surface. All right, so let's get back to our camera angle by hitting C so that you can go back to your camera view. And let's also save our scene because my file just got crashed. So just save it, save as, and you can save it as per your need wherever you want to save it. Let's quickly create a folder for it, and creating a landscape. Let's give it a name. All right, so now it's time to add some trees to this mountain, and as you can see, these mountains are looking a little unsmooth, so you can also apply a mesh smooth modifier to it. Mesh smooth. Okay, you can copy this and you can apply it to other mountains as well. Just paste. Okay, this surface is not looking that much good, so just select and let's see what we can do with it. I'm again going to displacement and I'm just playing with the strength, or you can scale it a little bit downwards, something like that, just like this, or you can try rotating it. Okay, done. So let's now add some, we will add some trees to these surfaces, the mountains, and for that I'm going to use a plugin called iToo software Forest Pro. So let's get to the menu of iToo software, select Forest Pro, and here you can see the library slot, it's empty right now. So let's first select a library. You can see this is the forest library, and right now I do not have so many trees. I'm just using the free models of it. So just select the HQ plants and let's add some maple trees. Import selected, and as you can see now it's showing one model selected, and just click on the surface and click OK. As you can see, the tree is looking very big and the mountain is looking very small. So we can go to the modify tab of the forest plugin, and you can see there is something called scale. Just scale it downwards, something like this, and you can also see there are areas in distribution map. Go to the distribution map, and there is something called units. So right now let's just, the scattering, you can see it was too much, so I'm just scaling it a little bit downwards the number of units, and you can see now until you got the desired result. Just play around with the settings. Also the distribution map, you can see here, you can change the distribution map to something scattered, spread 1. So there are various map, full, it's too dense, there is a grouping, grid. So you can play around with the settings. So I think the scattered is sufficient, and let's decrease the size by scaling it down. Okay, and in the viewport you will not get the actual results. It's just a kind of, you know, just an impression that how many trees you have, but it's not, you will see the final results in the rendering. Okay, so let's see the result, but first of all let's quickly assign our rendering engine to Vray. So go to the render setup, you can hit F10 for the render. Okay, so I'm going to change my renderer to Vray, and let's quickly do some settings for Vray for this particular scene, and just go to Vray tab. I'm going to use the inbuilt frame buffer, I mean the 3ds Max frame buffer. I'm not going to use Vray frame buffer, so I'm disabling it in the image sampler. I'm changing it to bucket. It's up to you, you can use progressive, it doesn't make much difference. In the GI I am going to change this global illumination. I'm making it primary engine to irradiance map, and the preset I'm changing it to low. Now I think yeah, there was one more thing, which is environment. Just switch on the environment. So for now these settings are enough, we will do the final settings later on. Let's set our output size of render to something around 800 by 600 and hit render, and let's see how it is looking. Okay, the output is coming like this. As you can see, the trees are looking very big to me, because as I can see, the mountains are looking so small, and in comparison to that the trees are looking very big. So I need to scale down the trees. So you can go to the forest modifier, and let's scale down the value to something around 1.3 or 1.5, and let's see how they are. Let's hit render production. I think the size is quite okay, but now we need to increase. Just select the forest object again, and let's increase the spread. Also I'm just making these trees a little bit bigger, something around 1.8. okay, and here's the global size, global scale. You can increase by here also if you want. Okay, and let's make it spread 1. It's too much dense, something like this, and let's see how it it's looking very dense now. Okay, fine for now. And for the other mountains, let's repeat the same process by applying the trees. And to make this video shorter, I am just applying the same technique to the other mountains as well. So I am just fast forwarding this video, and we'll do the same thing with these mountains. So we have applied the trees to all the mountains, as you can see. So let's quickly hit render, and let's see how the scene is looking now. Okay, much better. And now it's time to add some texture to our mountain. So hit for the material editor slot, you can simply hit M, and you can apply a Vray material to it. Materials, you can go to Vray, and let's quickly apply a Vray material to it. Go to the diffuse slot and choose a general map, that is bitmap. Click OK, and go to your library where you have stored your textures. So I have one Rocky Mountain kind of texture, which is this. I'm applying this material, this bitmap, to the mountains. You can select the geometry and hit apply, and apply to each and every mountain. Assign material to selection, and you can click on show shaded material in viewport option so that your viewport show the material how it is looking. Now the thing is, if you go and see the material, there is some problem with the UV mapping, so you can apply UW mapping on these mountains. Let's apply a box mapping and see how it is looking. Let's increase the tiling to something around 4x4. Let's increase it a little bit more. A bit more. I think it's better now. Let's copy this thing and let's paste it to other mountains as well. And paste as instance. I forgot to paste as instance on this one. Let's delete it and paste instance, so that if you make any changes, it will apply to each and every mountain. Paste instance. Get back to the camera angle and now hit and let's hit render. But before hitting the render button, I would like to add a sky to the environment. You can go to the rendering tab and you can go to environment, and for now I'm just changing the color to something blue so that it will look like a sky. Render, and let's see how it is looking. Okay, that's looking pretty good for now. And let's apply some lighting to our scene so that we can give it a realistic look. For this particular scene, I am just applying a HDRI lighting technique. So let's quickly go to the light menu, choose Vray lights, and I'm using a Vray light, the very first light, and let's change the type to dome. And you can place this dome light anywhere in your scene, it doesn't matter where you are putting it. So just click like this, and for the texture I'm going to use a HDRI map. Go to your material editor slot and choose on the diffuse button, choose Vray HDRI by going to Vray menu and choose this Vray HDRI map. HDRI, this kind of HDRI map with me. You can apply any map according to your choice, the kind of look you are looking for your particular scene. I'm applying this one, and let's see. And also what I'm going to do is, as you can see, the texture slot is right now it is empty, so just drag like this, choose instance, so whatever changes you will make here, it will update it to this particular slot. Also go to your environment tab, and in the environment window I'm also applying it on the environment map. Click OK, and for this one also choose instance. Also, if you want to show the same background to your viewport background, so what you can do is you can go to default shading, right click on it, and choose viewport background as environment background. So whatever is there in your environment, it will show as your viewport background as well. Okay, so now the thing is, like, it is not showing up. So the reason for this is like the map which you have chosen. Let's go back to our HDRI map by hitting material editor slot. Go to material editor, and if you see your HDRI, the mapping type is set to 3ds Max standard. Just change it to something like spherical. It totally depends upon the type of HDRI map you are having. I know that I'm having a spherical HDRI, so I'm choosing the mapping type as spherical. Also, if you make any changes to it, like for example, if you change the rotation, you can see the rotation is changing. So you can set your HDRI by these options. Anyways, so now let's apply a shader to our water surface. So I'm going to material editor slot, and I'm just applying a very basic V-Ray material to it. I'm not going very deep into the shading part of ocean surface or water surface. I'm just applying a very simple V-Ray material to it and doing the very basic shading for it. I'm choosing the color to some kind of bluish or greenish, something like this. Click OK, and let's give some reflection to it. Click OK, and I think refraction is not required, but yeah, let's give 2-3 value. A little bit of refraction, something around this much is a very little amount of refraction. Okay, and let's hit render and let's see how it is looking. Okay, as you can see, the surface is looking like a flat mirror, a flat reflective surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm applying a bump map to this surface so that we'll get some ocean kind of feeling, some kind of sea or water surface. So let's quickly go to your map slot of the same shader, and let's apply a bump map to it. Okay, and let's see if we have any texture. Yeah, let's choose this one. Let's see how this will look like. Well, let's see if we have any other thing. Something like this. Okay, let's go ahead with that only. And I am just selecting a region render this time because I just want to get focus on my water surface. Okay, much better. Much better, but though I am not very happy with this shader, but for the sake of this tutorial I'm just keeping the things simple. Let's change the color of the surface to something a little darker. Let's see now. You can always play around with the colors unless you are happy with your like whatever is in your mind. So for me, I think this is sufficient, but yes, obviously you can do you can get much better result by playing around the settings and changing the things as per the need. Okay, pretty much good. And let's go to our HDRI slot, and what I'm going to do is, as you can see, these trees are visible here, so you can scale out your HDRI, or you can play around with this rotation, or you can do the things in the post-production. Okay, so I'm also increasing the overall multiplier to something around 1.4 so that I will get a little bit of more bright light in the scene. Now let's get back to our render setup for the final render, and I'm just changing the output size to something bigger. It says 1600 by 1200. Okay, or you can choose any outputs preset according to your need, and let's hit render. I'm doing a full render this time. And for making this scene a little bit much more better, what you can do, you can apply bump map to this texture to get more realism. So it's totally up to you what you can do. You can play around with some light settings. You can try adding some more variation to these trees. I have just added a maple tree. You can choose 2-3 libraries at the same time to make this this particular thing much more realistic. So yeah, you can play around with the settings, with the presets, the libraries, and you can get much better result. Now let's hit render. Also, what I can do is I'm just pausing it, stopping it, and what I'm going to do is I'm applying some kind of a prop. You can say, like, I can import some geometry. I can import and choose merge option. I have this boat model which I have downloaded. I've downloaded from CG Trader actually. Click on open and select all, and okay. Let's rotate it something like this. Okay. Okay, let's see how it is looking, and let's hit the render button. Okay, so our rendering is completed, but I'm not happy with the 2-3 things which I have noticed. The very first thing is this bump map. This is not looking good at all. If you see this particular area, it's not looking good. Also, if I see the variation of trees, I'm not happy with this, because each and every tree is, I think, like, there is no variation here. Also, this thing is looking quite nice. This is also looking quite nice, and this board is looking very flat. Okay, I'm not talking about the board because it's pre-downloaded, and we can replace this particular board. But if I talk about these things, so I just need to replace this bump map, and we will do some correction with these trees. Okay, I'm quickly changing my material of this thing, this water surface. I'm replacing it with some other material. Okay, I think this bump map is quite good. Let's see how it look like, and let's select these trees and modify them. Now let's go down and let's see in this tree editor. Actually, in the transform, if you go to the transform menu, you can see like there is a scale which like if you click on enable, so there is minimum and maximum. So the minimum size would be 80 and the maximum size is 120%. So right now the scale is enabled, and you can change the values. You can give some randomness. So now the smallest tree would be of 62% and the maximum of 120. So we have given some variation to it. And also let's go to the distribution, and yeah, so I am just distributing the number of units. I increase the units so that there will be a little lesser units. I mean, I've just spreaded them so that I can get like a little more of mountain. And let's do the same thing to this mountain as well. I'm just doing the same thing to this thing as well. So I have just changed the minimum scale to 54 and the maximum to, let's say, 110, something like that. Okay, now let's hit render again and let's see. Okay, much better than the previous one. I'm talking about the trees, but still the water surface is not looking that good, but the texture is fine. What we can do is we can just give some scaling to it so that it will look nice. So go back to material editor and let's increase the tiling of our bump map. Go to the bump map bitmap and just increase the tiling of it, let's say around something around 5 by 5, and let's hit render again. I think the water surface is looking fine for now, and yes, you can add some details, more details to the trees. Like you can add other types of trees as well, and you can play around with the settings, and you can also edit this geometry. You can see there are lots of trees over here on this area which should not be, which are not supposed to be like this. But anyways, to keep the thing simple, I am just satisfied with what we have created. And let's if you want, you can also do some render setup. You can enhance the settings of your final render to, you can increase the number of samples in GI. You can increase the light cache subdivisions. You can change this thing to medium or something like that, but I'm pretty satisfied with the render quality which which we have got. And let's save this. I'm just saving it as a PNG file so that we can do some post-production in Photoshop. Let's save this and let's jump into Photoshop for do some post-processing. Okay, so we are in Photoshop and just open our render, and also we want to place some sky. So here are some sky images which I have downloaded from Viz people. So this is a free sky samples, you can also download it, and I am using this image as my background sky. And let's open our render. It is somewhere, yeah. Okay, so here is our render, and what I'm going to do is I'm just using move tool. Okay, so just put the layer at the back, and it's totally up to you that where you want to place the image. You can play around like this. I think this is okay. Okay, let's give some perspective to our sky. So for that, actually the image is quite big, so I'm just cropping it so that we can make the things easier for us. So just grab the crop tool, and as you can see there is a boundary box, and just hit enter twice. Okay, so now what we can do is just hit Ctrl T by selecting the background layer, sky layer, and right click perspective, and just stretch the corners from left to right so that we can give some nice perspective to our sky. Okay, hit enter. So now we are done with the background image, background sky, and you can play around with some brightness and contrast to get the desired result. And so hit Ctrl L, that is for levels. Just play around with some brightness or contrast, and I'm just taking one empty layer, I'm filling it with black color to add some vignette kind of effect. Choose eraser tool and just decrease the hardness to 0, and just erase it from the center like this. Hit 2 or 3 times, and then you can decrease the opacity so that you will get some nice so that the focus is in the between, what I mean to say. And you can decrease the opacity a little more, something around like this, so you can see. Oh, Photoshop is crashed. Thank you very much. So I have done the things again because Photoshop was crashed. Anyways, so you can see we have added a vignette layer, and everything looks good. You can add some adjustment layers if you want. For example, you want to give some vibrance, so you can increase the vibrance so that you can enhance the scene, something like this. Also, what you can do is, as we have not rendered our depth of field pass, but we can like, as these mountains are quite far, you can also blur these mountains to give a nice realistic effect, but that is totally up to you. But yes, I always prefer to render a depth of field pass. There is a separate tutorial for that, you can go ahead and watch that. I'm not going to cover that thing in this tutorial, but yeah, you can watch it separately. So also what we can do is we can just use a white brush, and we can, like, from here we can just paint some light. Just use a soft brush. From this side, something like this. Now you can change the screen mode to something overlay, or then you can decrease the opacity so that you can get some nice, some lighting which is at the sky, and at the same time it is giving some kind of effects on these mountains and trees. And you can add one new layer and just do some paint, some kind of haziness on these mountains like this, and just decrease the opacity. I think that is sufficient. So this is giving some kind of haze, some kind of blurriness, as these mountains are quite far. Also, you can add some film strips kind of effect. Just use your marquee tool. Before that, take one new layer and fill it with black color, and select your frame like this, hit delete, so you will get some film strip kind of effect. It's totally up to you that what kind of composition you want. And you can play around with some curves, gradient map, and you can, if you want to give some tint to your scene, for example, if I want to make it a little warmer, so I have applied this thing, click OK, and then you can try adjusting the blending modes, something like this. Then you can decrease the opacity to get the desired result. Okay, so it was like this, now it is like this. If you want, you can, if let's say if I want to give blue tint to the scene, yes, something like this, or if I want to give green tint to the scene. So yeah, you can play around with, there are so many bunch of options in Photoshop. Alright, and by the same kind of techniques, I have created a few more renders by adding some more geometry to this part. So let's say I've created this scene, something like this. As you can see, I've added some kind of more details by adding geometry. And yeah, the technique is same. You can play around and you can create something like these, something like this. Yeah, it's totally up to you. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much. And please do not forget to subscribe my channel and to like this video. Thank you. Goodbye.